Lisa, now let's take a closer look at a news story that I think has not yet caught the attention of the tech industry, but I think this could be pretty big. In a historic move, key federal lawmakers, including Senate Commerce Committee Chair Maria Cantwell and House Energy and Commerce Committee Chair Kathy McMorris Rodgers, unveiled a sweeping proposal aimed at granting consumers extensive rights to manage the use of their data by tech giants like Google, Meta, and TikTok. The proposed legislation is called the American Privacy Rights Act, and it establishes a national baseline for data collection, usage, and transfer on the internet, allowing users to opt out of certain practices like targeted advertising. The bipartisan agreement also addresses longstanding issues around federal versus state laws and outlines enforcement mechanisms through civil lawsuit for violations. But its prospects in Congress are uncertain. I think this is a really interesting story, Lisa. Did you have some thoughts on it too?
Yeah, my first thought was it's about time. And we've been behind Europe with GDPR for so long. We've seen states like California with CCPA becoming CPRA, really taking the lead to protect consumer data. We all, as consumers, there are breaches in the news daily. We know that the attack surface is expanding. It's getting more sophisticated. It's getting much more personal. Smishing is an issue. So my first thought was it's about time. I was surprised pleasantly to hear that it was bipartisan, but I think it's really about time because all we're doing day in and day out is creating data, and that's only going to increase. And the ability for the bad actors to get access to it and hack and destroy brands and things is only increasing. So I think it's something that is really necessary at the federal level, and I think it's about time.
Yeah, the bipartisan angle is really cool here too. Basically the House and the Senate, which are, respectively Republican dominated and Democrat dominated, both came together. They have each have a committee that focuses on topics like this, and the heads of each committee, a Republican and a Democrat, came together to basically address all of the different varying concerns that each of them has. So, from my understanding, for example, the Republicans didn't like the idea that consumers could be suing people for violations in private lawsuits. And I think that the Democrats didn't like the fact that some businesses would be affected by this and others wouldn't. But they did the thing that I wish Washington would do more, which is they came together and they reached consensus and they compromised and they came up with a solution that's honestly pretty good. Essentially, from my understanding here, this law would be sort of like the GDPR in Europe or the CCPA in California, and it would allow consumers to control how their data is accessed. And as you said, a lot of this now it kind of veers into this whole cyberspace, cybersecurity aspect as well, because if data is not retained, if data is deleted, if data is protected properly, and if there's enforcement mechanisms out there, hopefully some of this data won't be leaked and used by criminals. But it also impacts user privacy. It impacts the whole question of targeted ads and all that sort of thing. So the idea is that this would affect only the larger companies. I believe that it exempts companies under some revenue mark, like $40 million or something. It would allow, for example, private lawsuits. It would not allow things to just be shunted over to arbitration, which is generally seen as pretty consumer unfriendly. So overall, this sounds great. Now, another aspect of this that's important is that many states were starting to implement their own laws on consumer data privacy and data protection. And this would preempt all of those. Essentially, it would say no more state laws. We're going to have a federal law for data privacy and data protection that applies to all the states. And again, I think that that's something that's really needed because the internet is not bound by state boundaries. And the idea that consumers in California get different protection than consumers just over the border in Nevada or something, it seems pretty weird to me. So again, this all seems like it's headed in the right direction to me, but I wonder if it's really going to pass.
That's a great question. Will it pass? I think the bipartisan example that you highlighted is incredibly important and maybe foreshadowing for things to come. But I really think at the federal level, it will help organizations understand it should health organizations understand rules much more clearly, to your point, versus businesses that work with data from California, et cetera. A lot of confusion there. Hopefully this will smooth things out, be even, and get past, and really ultimately protect us like we should be protected as consumers.
Yeah, I do hope it passes. Unfortunately, it's an election year. We've got budget crises, we've got wars, we've got funding questions, we've got so much stuff going on in Washington. Um, I want to be optimistic about a beautiful, appropriate, bipartisan bill that would actually benefit people getting through Washington. But I am a bit of a cynic, and I do wonder if it's even going to be put up for a vote. We'll see. We'll see. If it is, this could be huge.